The first thing that scared me wasn't the missing man. It was a strip of orange flagging tape tied to a greasewood branch 3 miles outside the area we were searching. I know that doesn't sound like much. Orange tape is everywhere during a search and rescue operation. We use it to mark clues, boundaries, hazards, places already checked, and sometimes nothing more important than where somebody left a water cache. By the second day of a large search, the backcountry can look like it has been decorated by the world's most pessimistic birthday party. But our team tied ours a certain way. 2 wraps around the branch, half hitch, long tail facing the direction of travel, sector number and time written in black grease pencil. That wasn't an official Park Service standard. It was just how our district did it, and after 9 years I could recognize one of our markers from 50 yards away. The tape in front of me was tied correctly. On the tail, somebody had written C7 cleared. There was one problem. Sector C7 didn't exist, not yet. I stood there staring at it while the wind pushed sand across my boots in thin sheets. Behind me, Dana Ruiz said, "Luke?" Her dog had stopped moving. Bowie was a 6-year-old black lab trained for wilderness tracking. He had spent the previous 40 minutes dragging Dana across the basin with his nose down, following the scent from a hiking shirt supplied by the missing man's girlfriend. Now his tail was stiff. Not tucked, not wagging, just still. Dana came up beside me and looked at the tape. "Is that ours?" "It looks like ours." "You guys open another sector?" "No." The search had started 16 hours earlier after a 28-year-old photographer named Eric Nolan failed to return from an overnight trip into the western dune field. Eric wasn't a reckless tourist. That mattered. He had water, a satellite messenger, a compass, a bivy sack, and enough backcountry experience to know that dunes are deceptive after dark. A person can walk toward what looks like a fixed ridgeline for an hour and discover they've been drifting 20 degrees off course the entire time. His girlfriend reported him missing after his satellite messenger stopped transmitting shortly before sunset. By midnight, we had 23 people in the field. By sunrise, we had found his first campsite. By noon, we had found a lens cap. At 3 that afternoon, Bowie picked up a clean scent trail moving north. Everything about the search had made sense until the orange tape. I keyed my radio. "Mercer to command." Static scratched in my ear. The western basin had several ugly radio shadows, nothing unusual there. I walked 10 yards upslope and tried again. "Mercer to command." This time our incident commander answered. "Command, go." "Did anybody establish a Charlie 7? A pause. "Negative. Charlie currently runs 1 through 4. Why?" "I've got district flagging marked C7 cleared." Another pause, longer this time. "Say again?" Dana was watching me now. Bowie had turned away from the marker and was pulling gently south, back toward the scent line we'd been following before I noticed the tape. "I found orange reflective flagging tied in our field pattern," I said. "Mark Charlie 7 cleared." "Could be old." "No." "How sure?" I rubbed the tail of the tape between my fingers. The plastic was clean. No grit worked into the fold. The grease pencil hadn't collected dust. "In this wind, less than a day." Command went quiet. I could hear voices behind the radio transmission, somebody asking for a map, somebody else repeating C7. Then, "Photograph it, leave it in place. Continue your assignment. We'll sort it when you're back." That was the correct answer. Document the anomaly. Don't contaminate it. Stay on task. Search operations fall apart when everybody abandons their sector to investigate whatever catches their attention. I had learned that lesson the expensive way 6 years earlier. So I photographed the tape, recorded the coordinates, and stepped back. Dana gave Bowie his tracking command. He immediately pulled south, away from the marker. We followed him. The dunes out there weren't the postcard kind. The tallest ridges were miles east of us. This part of the park was a broken transition zone where sand thinned into hardpan, greasewood, rabbit brush, and shallow washes carved by storms that might come only twice a year. Visibility was excellent. That made the next marker worse. We found it 12 minutes later. Same orange tape, same knot, same handwriting. C-7. Cleared. This one was tied to a dead juniper branch at shoulder height. Dana didn't say anything for several seconds. Then she asked, "Could somebody be messing with the search?" "Who?" She looked around. There was nobody. The basin stretched pale and empty under a washed-out November sky. Far to the east, the dunes rose like frozen waves. To the west, dark cliffs cut the horizon. Between those two boundaries, anything human should have been visible from a long way off. Dana crouched beside Bowie. The dog sniffed the base of the branch once and recoiled. That got my attention. What? He doesn't like something. Animal? Maybe. She loosened the lead and let him circle. Bowie ignored the flagging and moved 20 feet downhill. Then he stopped at a patch of sand trapped behind a clump of grass. He began pawing. I knelt beside him. At first I thought he'd found another piece of Eric's gear. Then I brushed away the sand. It was a handheld radio. Not Eric's. Ours. An older Park Service model with a cracked display and no battery. Someone had wrapped orange tape around the antenna. Dana looked at me. "Luke?" "I see it." There was a white inventory sticker on the back. Most of the number had been scraped away, but 4 digits remained. I knew them. I had typed them into an equipment loss report my second year in the district. The radio had belonged to a volunteer searcher named Caleb Voss. Caleb disappeared during a rescue operation 8 years ago. We never found him. I turned the radio over in my hands. Something rattled inside. Dana whispered, "How long has that been buried?" Before I could answer, Bowie growled. Not toward the radio, toward the ridge behind us. I turned. At the top of the low dune, maybe 70 yards away, another strip of orange tape snapped in the wind. There was writing on it. Even from that distance, I could see there were 2 lines. Dana lifted her binoculars. She focused, then slowly lowered them. "What does it say?" She didn't answer. "Dana?" Her face had gone pale. I took the binoculars from her. The writing was large enough to read. Mercer/Ruiz cleared. I kept the binoculars up longer than I needed to. The tape did not change. Mercer/Ruiz cleared. The wind pulled the orange tail straight, then let it snap against the branch. Dana said, "That wasn't there when we came through." "We didn't come through that ridge. We crossed below it 20 minutes ago. I would have seen orange." She was right. Against pale sand, our reflective tape might as well have been a road flare. I handed the binoculars back. "Command needs to know." This time my radio connected on the first try. "Mercer to command, priority traffic." The reply came immediately. "Go. We've located a second equipment item and additional unauthorized flagging. One marker contains our names." Silence. Then our incident commander, Ranger Superintendent Paul Avery, came back sounding different. "Not frightened, careful. Repeat the last part." "The marker says Mercer/Ruiz cleared." Dana looked at me when I said it aloud. Some things become more real once another person hears them. Avery asked, "Any other wording?" "Negative." "Anyone visible?" "Negative." "Return to command." That surprised me. "We have an active scent trail." "Return to command." "Bowie is still on Eric." "I understand that." "Then pulling us wastes the best lead we've had." Avery didn't answer for several seconds. When he did, his voice had gone flat in the way supervisors talk when the discussion is over. "Luke, disengage from the track. Bring Ruiz and the dog back. Do not approach the marker with your names on it." Dana heard that through my speaker. Her eyebrows rose. I keyed the mic. "Why?" "Because I said so." That was not an answer. Avery knew I knew it. I had worked under him for 4 years. He could be rigid, but he wasn't theatrical. If there was a safety issue, he named it. Rockfall, heat exposure, possible armed subject, weather. He didn't hide behind rank unless he was hiding something else. "Copy," I said. I released the button. Dana stared at me. "We're not going back, are we?" "We are." Her expression told me she didn't believe me. I pointed at Bowie. "We're going back along his track." That part was true. Bowie had led us north from Eric's campsite, then curved south before the first fake C7 marker. If someone was laying tape around us, I wanted to know whether they had crossed Eric's scent line. Dana understood without asking. She gave Bowie a hand signal and shortened his lead. We moved quickly. 10 minutes later, we reached the shallow wash where Bowie had first turned south. The dog stopped. He circled, then circled again. Dana frowned. He lost it? Maybe wind. No, she pointed toward the wash. Somebody walked through here. I couldn't see it at first. The ground was hard-packed gravel covered by a skin of wind-blown sand. Footprints rarely lasted more than an hour. Then I noticed the stones. Small pieces of dark volcanic gravel had been kicked onto the lighter surface. A crossing track. One person, maybe two. Dana moved Bowie to the disturbed ground. He sniffed. His posture changed immediately. Not Eric. He pulled west. "That's a different scent," Dana said. "Can you tell how fresh?" She gave me a look. "I'm a handler, not a wizard." Despite everything, I almost smiled. Then Bowie dragged her toward a cluster of tamarisk at the edge of the wash. We found the backpack there. It was green, sun-faded, half-buried beneath dead branches. An external frame model that hadn't been common in years. Dana stopped 5 feet away. "You recognize that too?" I did. Caleb Voss had been carrying a green Kelty pack when he disappeared. His missing person photograph was still in the equipment room at district headquarters. 26 years old, brown hair, volunteer SAR, 1 season away from applying to the Park Service Academy. 8 years later, I could still remember the final radio call, not the words, the sound. Caleb had been breathing hard. Then his transmission cut off in the middle of my name. I approached the pack slowly. The fabric was weathered enough to be real. One shoulder strap had cracked. A metal buckle was furred with corrosion. This hadn't been planted recently, not unless someone had spent years preparing it. I crouched. "Don't touch anything," Dana said. "I won't." The top flap was open. Inside were the remains of old emergency supplies, a foil blanket, empty water treatment packets, a first aid pouch, a rolled topographic map, and a notebook sealed inside a cloudy plastic bag. Dana exhaled. "Luke, I know. Command told us to leave." "I know. You're going to open it." "Yes." She muttered something in Spanish that I didn't need translated. I put on nitrile gloves from my medical kit and removed the bag. The notebook inside had swollen from years of humidity, though nothing out there stayed humid for long. I opened it carefully. Caleb's handwriting filled the first pages. Search assignments, coordinates, mileage, weather, ordinary field notes. The date matched the week he vanished. On the 3rd page, the notes changed. "Found flagging not ours." Then, "moves after we pass." A few lines lower, "They're using our grid." Dana leaned closer. I turned the page, more writing. "Messier now. Don't follow the tape. It doesn't mark where they've been. It marks where they want you to go." My mouth had gone dry. The next page contained a hand-drawn version of the search map from 8 years earlier. Several sectors had been crossed out. Others were circled. A line moved between them. Not random, a route. At the bottom, Caleb had written, "The missing hiker is bait." I stared at that sentence. 8 years ago, we had been searching for a 19-year-old backpacker named Jordan Bell. Jordan was never found. Neither was Caleb. Dana whispered, "Luke, somebody did this before." My radio crackled. Avery's voice. "Mercer, status." I didn't answer immediately. The route on Caleb's map bothered me. I knew the old search. I had walked 2 of those sectors myself. I traced the line with my finger. Charlie 2, Bravo 4, Delta 1. Then Caleb's route ended at a small square near the western cliffs, an abandoned maintenance structure. A pump house built when the park still maintained a seasonal stock trough in that basin. It had been shut down before I started working there. My radio crackled again. "Mercer, respond." I raised it. "Command, we located additional evidence." Avery answered too quickly. "What evidence?" "Caleb Voss's backpack." Nothing. No static, no voice, just dead air. Then Avery said very quietly, "Luke, listen to me. Leave it there." Dana and I looked at each other. Avery continued, "Do not read anything inside that pack." Too late. I stood. "How did you know there was something to read?" The radio stayed silent. I tried again. "Paul?" When he finally answered, I heard another voice in the command trailer behind him. Someone saying, "Cut the channel!" Then the transmission ended. Dana slowly turned toward the western cliffs. "The old pump house," she said. I nodded. Bowie was already facing that direction. His nose was lifted into the wind. Then, somewhere far across the basin, a whistle sounded. 3 short blasts. Pause. 3 more. The standard distress signal for a lost hiker. Bowie lunged so hard Dana nearly lost the lead. The whistle came again, 3 blasts, from the direction of the pump house. Then my radio lit up with a new transmission, not command. A handheld unit somewhere close. A man's voice, weak and shaking. "This is Eric Nolan." Dana froze. The voice continued. "I can see 2 Rangers." My skin prickled. There was no one visible anywhere around us. Eric whispered, "They're walking toward me." Then, after a breath, "But they look exactly like you." For a second, neither Dana nor I said anything. Then I grabbed the radio. "Eric, this is Ranger Mercer. Do not approach them. Do you understand?" Static. "Eric?" His reply came faintly. "Yes." "Are you injured?" "My ankle. I can't put weight on it." "Can you tell where you are?" "I don't know. There's a building." Dana pointed west. "The pump house." I kept my voice even. "Describe it." "Concrete, rusted roof, 1 door, there's a tank beside it." That was the place. I looked at Caleb's notebook again. The route ended there. "Eric, listen carefully. The 2 people you see, how close are they?" "Maybe 100 yards." "What makes you think they look like us?" He breathed into the radio for several seconds. "The man has your name." My grip tightened. "What?" "On his shirt, Mercer." Dana took a step closer. Eric continued. "The woman has Ruiz." Dana whispered, "No." "Eric," I said, "are they speaking to you?" "Not yet." "Do they have a dog?" A pause. "No." That mattered. Not because it made the situation better, because it meant whoever was out there had copied what they could see or learn without actually having Bowie. "Stay hidden," I told him. "Turn your radio volume as low as possible. Do not answer anyone unless they give you the word canyon." "Canyon." "Repeat it. Canyon." "Good. If someone claims to be me and doesn't say canyon, don't respond." Dana touched my arm and pointed at my radio. The receive indicator was still glowing. Someone else was holding the channel open, listening. I released the push to talk and watched the indicator. It went dark. Dana said quietly, "They heard the password." "Maybe." "Then why give him one?" "So they think that's the test." She stared at me. I pulled my compass from my chest pocket. "The real test is that I'm not going to call him by radio again." For the first time since we'd found Caleb's pack, Dana smiled without humor. Now you're thinking like a paranoid person. I'm learning. We moved into the wash and stayed below the low ridges. The direct route to the pump house was less than a mile. I took us south. Dana didn't question it. The dog did. Bowie kept trying to swing west toward Eric's scent, and Dana had to work him in a wide arc. After 15 minutes, the pump house disappeared behind a line of dunes. That was what I wanted. If someone was watching from the structure, I wanted them to lose us. I keyed my radio. Command, Mercer. No answer. Again. Command, Mercer. Nothing. I switched to the tactical channel. Any unit, Mercer? A voice came back. Mercer, this is Team 2. Go. Ranger Kelly Moss. I knew Kelly. What's your location? Bravo 3, south boundary. Who's with you? Jeff and Morales? Authentication question. What did you break in the equipment bay last month? A pause. Then Kelly laughed nervously. The coffee maker. You blamed who? Maintenance? Good enough. Kelly, listen carefully. Do not repeat this over radio. Take your team back to command by the southern vehicle route. Do not follow any flagging you didn't personally place. What happened? Just do it. Another voice broke in. Team 2, disregard that instruction. Avery. Dana and I stopped. Avery continued. Maintain your assigned sector. Mercer is operating outside the search plan. Kelly didn't respond. I keyed up. Paul, get everyone out of the western basin. No? We have an unidentified person using our uniforms and monitoring radio traffic. I know. That stopped me. Dana's expression hardened. You know? I said. Avery answered immediately. Yes. The anger came fast. Then why are 23 people still walking around out here? Because if I pull everyone at once, whoever is doing this disappears again. Again. The word hung there. Caleb's notebook suddenly felt heavier in my pack. You knew 8 years ago. Avery said nothing. You knew what happened to Caleb. I knew there was evidence we couldn't explain. That's not what I asked. Luke, get Ruiz back to command. And leave Eric? We'll handle Eric. How? Silence. Then Avery said, we have another team approaching the pump house. Dana grabbed my sleeve. I keyed the radio so hard my thumb hurt. Which team? No answer. Paul, which team? The receive indicator flashed. Then a voice I didn't recognize said, Mercer, this is Ranger Ruiz. We have visual on the subject. Dana went completely still beside me. The transmission was clear. Female voice, professional cadence, not identical to Dana's, but close enough that someone who had only heard her briefly over the radio might accept it. The voice continued. Subject appears injured. We're moving in. Dana slowly raised her own radio. Who the hell is this? The other woman answered without hesitation. Ranger Dana Ruiz. Bowie began growling. The fake Ruiz laughed once. Then the channel went quiet. I looked at Dana. That was intentional. No kidding. They wanted us to answer. Why? I glanced toward the hidden pump house. So they know where we are. A sharp crack sounded from somewhere behind us. Not a gunshot. A branch, then another. Bowie spun east, barking. Dana unclipped the secondary restraint from his harness. Someone's following. We moved, fast. The wash narrowed between two gravel banks, giving us cover but also trapping us in a corridor. I hated it. After 50 yards, I saw fresh boot marks in the sand ahead. They came down the bank from the north. Park Service tread. The same model boots I was wearing. I stopped so abruptly Dana almost hit me. The prints continued across the wash, then vanished up the opposite bank. I crouched. Fresh. How fresh? Minutes. Dana stared at the ridge above us. They're crossing ahead of us. No. I looked back. Another set of prints entered the wash 20 yards behind. They're closing it. The old search map flashed in my mind. Caleb's route, sector after sector, a line that looked like pursuit. Maybe it hadn't been showing where he'd searched. Maybe it showed how they'd moved him. I pulled the notebook out again. Near the pump house square, Caleb had drawn 3 arrows, 2 from the sides, 1 from behind, and beneath them, almost hidden in the fold of the page, he had written, "They don't chase you. They give you only one safe direction." I looked west. The pump house was hidden beyond the dunes. The one direction no footprints blocked. Dana read my face. "What?" "They're hurting us." "To Eric?" "Maybe." "Then that's still where we need to go." I shook my head. "No, that's where they need us to go." A whistle sounded again. 3 short blasts, closer now, but it didn't come from the west. It came from behind us. Then another whistle answered from the north. 3 blasts. A third replied from the south. Dana whispered, "How many people are out here?" I looked down at Bowie. The dog's head was turning from whistle to whistle, confused. Then his nose lifted. He ignored all 3 sounds and pulled hard toward the east, away from Eric, away from the pump house. Dana stared at him. "He's got his scent again." "Eric's?" She shook her head. "No?" "Then whose?" Bowie dragged her toward the bank. At the top, half covered by loose sand, was a fresh strip of orange tape. This one had no sector number. Only a time. 4:35 p.m. I checked my watch. 4:27. Under the time, someone had written, "Dog first." I checked my watch again. 4:28. 7 minutes. Dana read the marker twice. "Dog first." "That's what it says." "First what?" I didn't answer. Bowie pulled toward the east ridge, nose working furiously. Dana tightened the lead. "We need to move." "No," she stared at me. "Luke, somebody just wrote a time 8 minutes from now and mentioned my dog." "Exactly. So standing here is your plan?" "My plan is to stop doing what they expect." The whistles had gone quiet. That bothered me more than hearing them. Whoever was around us had spent the last 20 minutes creating pressure, sounds behind us, tracks on both sides, fake radio traffic, visible markers. Now nothing. They were waiting. I looked at the terrain. West led toward the pump house. North and south had visible tracks. East was the direction Bowie wanted to go. It also contained the fresh marker. 4 options. Every one of them had been presented to us. That meant none of them were ours. I pointed at the ground. "We stay here for 30 seconds. Dana looked like she wanted to argue, but she trusted Bowie, and Bowie had stopped pulling. The dog was staring northeast, not barking, watching. At 4:29, I heard a faint metallic click. I dropped. "Down." Dana hit the ground beside Bowie. Something snapped through the greasewood where my chest had been. A dart. It buried itself in the dirt. Dana crawled toward it. "Don't touch it." "I wasn't planning to." The dart was short and thick, with plastic fins and a hypodermic tip. Not something fired from a gun. A tranquilizer projector. Dana's face changed. "They weren't threatening Bowie." I looked northeast. "They were telling us the order. Dog first, then us." A second dart struck the ridge behind Dana. We moved. Not east, straight up the steep southern bank. Loose gravel slid beneath our boots. Dana shoved Bowie ahead of her while I climbed backward for several steps, trying to watch the opposite ridge. A person stood there, maybe 80 yards away. Tan uniform shirt, green pants, flat Ranger hat. From a distance, perfect. Up close would have been different. The shirt had no shoulder patch. The duty belt was wrong, and nobody working an active backcountry search wore a campaign hat. The figure raised something to their shoulder. "Move!" We dropped over the top of the bank as another dart passed behind us. Dana said, "I saw him." So did I. That's not some confused tourist. No. We ran downslope into a maze of shallow gullies. My radio came alive. Mercer, report. Avery, I ignored him. Luke, answer me. Dana looked over. You think he's with them? I think I don't know what Paul is doing. That sounds like yes. It sounds like I don't know. The radio clicked again. Then Kelly Moss's voice came through. Mercer, Team 2, we're withdrawing. Relief hit me. Good, stay together. We've got a problem. Of course we did. What? We found your vehicle. I slowed. My truck is at command. That's what I thought. Dana stopped beside me. Kelly continued. There's a Park Service pickup parked in Bravo 3. Same unit number as yours. My mouth went dry. What plate? She read it. It was mine. Do not approach it. Wasn't planning to. Can you see anyone around it? No. Driver doors open. Back away, south route, now. Avery broke onto the channel. All teams, command, radio discipline. Stop discussing unauthorized vehicles on tactical. Kelly said, unauthorized? Avery didn't answer her. He addressed me. Luke, where are you? I looked around. That question was suddenly more dangerous than it should have been. Moving. Coordinates. No. Dana looked at me. Avery's voice hardened. Mercer, give me your coordinates. I've got people shooting tranquilizer darts at us. That produced 3 seconds of silence. Then, are you hit? No. Ruiz? No. The dog? No. Then come back. You already knew somebody was impersonating staff? Yes. And you didn't warn the teams? I didn't know they were active today. There it was. Today. Not hypothetically. Not 8 years ago. Today. You expected them. I considered the possibility. You used the search to draw them out. No. That is exactly what you did. Luke, this is not a conversation for open radio. Dana muttered. Convenient. I switched the radio off, not down, off. Dana did the same. For several seconds, the only sound was our breathing. Then Bowie pulled northeast again. What scent is he on? I asked. Dana crouched and let him work. He picked it up near Caleb's pack. Could it be whoever planted the recent flagging? Maybe. Then follow it. You just said not to do what they expect. I said stop accepting the directions they give us, I pointed at Bowie. They didn't give us him. Dana considered that, then nodded. We followed the dog. Without the radio, the basin felt larger. The sun was dropping toward the cliffs now, turning every depression into a long shadow. We had maybe 90 minutes of usable daylight. Bowie moved fast. He wasn't tracking Eric anymore. This scent cut northeast, occasionally intersecting the false markers, but never following them. We crossed one. C6 searched 1552. There was no C6 either. Another. Team 4 turn west. Dana laughed once. They're giving traffic instructions now. They're losing control of us. 20 yards later, we found a third marker. This one said, Mercer, stop, I didn't. Bowie led us into an old drainage channel and accelerated. Then Dana yanked him back. Ahead of us, stretched ankle-high across the wash, was a nearly invisible monofilament line. I followed it with my eyes. It ran to a small metal canister hidden behind a rock. Dana whispered, Another dart trap? I crouched without touching it. No. The canister had a pull igniter, not explosive, a signal device. Tripwire flare. So if we cross, someone knows exactly where. We stepped around it. Another 50 yards, another wire, this one behind us. Dana stopped. They've been setting these all over. I looked at the pattern, not traps to injure. alarms, an invisible perimeter. Bowie had found its edge. We followed it north instead of crossing. Within minutes, I saw something that wasn't on any current park map, a ventilation pipe. 3 inches wide, brown painted steel, rising just above the sand beside a greasewood bush. I brushed dirt from the base. Concrete. Dana said, "What is that?" I already knew. The old pump house wasn't just a pump house. The stock watering system had included a buried cistern and maintenance tunnel extending east from the building. Most employees my age had never seen the original plans, but Caleb had. He'd worked facilities before volunteering for SAR. I looked toward the west. Whoever was manipulating the search wanted us at the visible pump house because the real access point wasn't there. It was beneath us. We followed the line of buried ventilation pipes for another 100 yards. Bowie led us to a low concrete hatch almost completely covered by sand and brush. Fresh boot prints surrounded it, several different sizes. One set matched the Park Service tread. Dana pointed at the edge. "Blood?" A dark smear marked the concrete. I touched it with a gloved finger, still tacky. Before I could speak, something knocked from below. 3 times, pause, 3 more. Dana and I stared at the hatch. Then a voice came through the concrete, faint, human. "Hello?" I dropped to my knees. "Eric?" A pause, then, "Ranger Mercer?" "Yes." The voice broke with relief. "Oh, thank God." Dana immediately started clearing sand from the hatch. I grabbed her wrist. "Wait," she stared at me. "Luke, ask him." "Ask what?" I leaned toward the concrete. "Eric, when we spoke on the radio, I gave you a word. What was it?" Silence below. Then the man answered, "Canyon." Dana started reaching for the hatch again. I didn't move, because Eric had heard the password over an open radio channel. So had everyone else. I leaned closer. "One more question." The voice below breathed hard. "Anything." What did the 2 fake rangers look like? A long pause. Too long. Then, "You and Dana." I stood up. Dana whispered, "What?" "When Eric called us, he said he could see 2 rangers walking toward him." "Right." "He never heard your name." She understood. Her face went still. The voice beneath the hatch called again. "Ranger Mercer?" I backed away. Then another voice came from underground. Farther away, weak, terrified. "Don't open it." A man coughed, then shouted, "Luke, that's not me." The first voice stopped. And from somewhere below our feet, a bolt slid into place. The sound of that bolt sliding into place changed the problem. Until then, whoever was doing this had controlled distance. They watched from ridges, moved markers, used radios, steered people through terrain. Now somebody was directly beneath us. Dana looked at the hatch. 2 voices. "Yeah? One of them is Eric." "Maybe." She gave me a frustrated look. "You're going to maybe us to death." "I'd rather do that than open the wrong door." The first voice returned. "Ranger Mercer?" Calm now, almost too calm. "Please open the hatch." The second voice shouted from deeper underground, "Don't!" Something struck metal below, then a muffled curse. Dana crouched beside Bowie and let him sniff around the hatch seam. The dog became frantic. He scratched at the concrete, whining. "Eric's scent?" I asked. "I need something cleaner." She pulled the missing man's hiking shirt from its sealed scent bag, let Bowie refresh, then pointed toward the hatch. He immediately pressed his nose against the eastern edge. Dana looked up. "His scent is down there." That was the first thing I trusted completely. Not the voices, not the radio, not the tape, the dog. I leaned close to the hatch. "Eric, move away from the door," the first voice answered. "I can't." I ignored it. "Move as far away as you can." The second voice called back, "I'm against the far wall." That was useful. I still wasn't opening the hatch. I studied the concrete. Old infrastructure has habits. Maintenance systems are designed by people who expect equipment to fail and workers to need alternate access. The buried cistern had ventilation. That meant air pathways, possibly a service conduit, possibly another entrance. Caleb would have known. I pulled his notebook out. Dana watched me turn the damp pages. Most were search notes, but near the back I found a rough sketch of the pump system. 3 rectangles, one for the pump house, one for the underground tank, and a narrow line extending east. At the end, he'd written, "Overflow." I looked down slope. In flash floods, a buried cistern needed somewhere to dump excess water. An overflow line would have to emerge at a lower elevation. "Come on," the voice under the hatch shouted after us. "Where are you going?" That decided it for me. A frightened, injured man trapped underground might ask that. But the speed of the response told me whoever was closest to the hatch had been listening carefully, monitoring our footsteps, tracking our choices. We moved east. Bowie kept glancing back, but Dana redirected him. The terrain dropped gradually toward a dry wash. I searched for concrete, pipe, unnatural cuts in the slope. Nothing. Then Dana spotted it. Luke. A rusted grate sat behind a dense patch of rabbit brush 30 yards below the hatch. Most of it was buried, maybe 18 inches high, 3 feet wide. An old drainage opening. Someone had recently cleared sand from one side, fresh shovel marks. I crouched. Cool air moved through the grate, and beneath the smell of dust and old concrete was something else. Sweat, human waste. Bowie began whining again. "Eric's definitely in there," Dana said. I shined my flashlight through. The tunnel was too small to crawl comfortably, but large enough if we had to. About 15 feet in, it expanded into darkness. Something pale lay near the far edge. "A shoe," I called quietly. "Eric?" Nothing. Then from inside, "Here." The second voice, closer now. I pressed my face near the grate. "Describe what you're touching." "What?" "The wall, floor, anything." A pause. "Concrete floor. Pipe on my left. Big pipe. Rusted. There's a metal ladder behind me." That matched what I could see. "What color are your boots?" "Gray." "Brand?" "Salomon." Search briefing said gray Salomons, not proof, but better. Then the first voice sounded again. Not from the tunnel, from behind us. "Luke." Dana spun. A man stood on the ridge above. Same fake Ranger uniform, no hat this time. He was maybe 40. Lean, sunglasses, something black in his hand. He raised it. Dana shoved Bowie behind the drainage berm. I dropped as a dart struck the grate with a metallic ping. The man didn't rush us. He simply started walking along the ridge, keeping parallel. That was what unsettled me. No panic, no attempt to conceal himself anymore. He knew where we were. He knew the terrain better than most visitors ever would, and he believed he still controlled the exits. "Stay down," I told Dana. "What do we do about Eric?" I studied the grate. 4 rusted bolts held it in place. The heads had been freshly scratched. Someone had removed this recently. I pulled the compact wrench from my field kit. Dana looked at me. "You're opening this one?" "This door wasn't offered to us." The first bolt turned. So did the second. The man on the ridge shouted, "Don't do that." I kept working. His voice carried strangely well in the open basin. "You don't know what's inside." Third bolt. Dana said, "He's coming down." "Tell me when he's 50 yards. He's already inside 70. Fourth bolt. I yanked. The grate didn't move. "Come on!" I pulled harder. It shifted half an inch. A cable snapped tight behind it. Dana saw it. "Stop!" I froze. A thin steel line ran from the back of the grate into a small drilled hole in the concrete. Another alarm, maybe worse. I carefully pushed the grate back. The man above stopped descending. He smiled. Even at that distance, I could see it. He had expected me to pull. Dana whispered, "Everything has a trigger." "No," I stared at the cable. "Everything obvious has a trigger." I looked at the drainage structure. The grate had been modified. The concrete hadn't. Water had once flowed through here. There had to be an open channel beneath the floor. I cleared sand from the base. 6 inches down, my fingers struck metal. A second grate. Horizontal, older, completely concealed. No fresh scratches, no cable. Dana understood immediately. Original overflow. I nodded. We dug with our hands. The man on the ridge started moving faster. 30 seconds later, we exposed enough of the old grate to lift one corner. A wave of stale air came out. Then a hand shot through the opening. Dana jumped back. I nearly did too. The hand was trembling. Dirty. Human. A voice beneath us said, "Please." I looked through the gap. A face stared up from the darkness. Young man, sunburned, dehydrated. Blood dried along one temple. Eric Nolan. He whispered, "There's another man in here." I glanced toward the vertical grate. The other voice had gone silent. "Who?" Eric shook his head. "I don't know his name." Then he grabbed my sleeve through the opening. "But he's wearing a Park Service uniform." Above us, Dana said, "Luke." I looked up. The fake ranger was no longer on the ridge. He had disappeared. Dana pointed behind me. Fresh orange tape fluttered from a bush less than 20 yards away. Neither of us had seen anyone place it. This marker contained only one sentence. "You found the wrong one." I tore the new marker down. Not because I thought removing it would change anything. Because I was tired of letting whoever was out there write the terms of the conversation. Dana watched me crush the orange tape into my pocket. "You sure that's smart?" "No?" "Good. Just checking." Eric's fingers were still hooked through the gap beneath us. I knelt. "Eric, how long have you been in there?" "I don't know. 2 days, maybe." "Who brought you?" "2 men. 1 woman. I never saw all of them at the same time." "Park employees?" He shook his head. "They dress like it." "Did they tell you why?" "No. They kept asking about the search." That caught me. What about the search? How many people would come? Whether dogs would come, if helicopters would come. How long before rangers started walking sectors? Dana looked at me. There it was. Not a theory anymore. Eric had not simply become lost and then fallen into somebody's hands. His disappearance had been engineered. "Eric," I said, "did they take your satellite messenger?" "Yeah." "Did they turn it off themselves?" He nodded. "They made me walk north first. Then one of them carried it farther for a while. I heard them talking about where they wanted the last ping." My stomach tightened. The entire operation had started from a manufactured clue. 23 searchers had been deployed according to a map chosen by the people hunting them. I looked toward the ridges. The basin suddenly felt less like wilderness and more like a building with invisible hallways. "What about the other man?" Dana asked. Eric glanced behind him. "I don't know who he is. They brought him in after me." "Can he walk?" "I think so." "Is he injured?" "I don't know." The fake ranger somewhere outside had gone silent. That meant he was moving. I checked the exposed horizontal grate. We could probably lift it enough to pull Eric through if we cut 2 rusted crossbars. My field saw would do it. But it would take time. Too much noise. Too much time. Dana must have reached the same conclusion. "We need command." "Not over radio." "Then what?" I looked at the sky. No aircraft. The incident helicopter had returned to refuel hours earlier. Our phones showed no service. The nearest vehicle I trusted was miles away. And Avery had admitted he knew impersonators had operated here before. That left one thing. Eric. not as a victim. As information. I leaned closer. What did they do after they put you inside? They left food, water. Sometimes they'd come back. Through the hatch? Mostly the other side. There's another door? He nodded. Tunnel goes west, maybe 100 yards. There's a steel door near the pump building. That explained how people could move unseen. What did they ask you? Same things. Questions about me, my girlfriend, what route I planned, then questions about the Rangers. What questions? Eric swallowed. They wanted names. Dana's face tightened. Whose? Anyone I heard on the radio. My eyes went to the handheld clipped to his belt. Your radio reaches outside? They gave it to me. I froze. They gave you the radio? Eric nodded. They told me to call for help if I heard anyone nearby. Dana whispered, Luke. I already understood. Eric had never stolen an opportunity to transmit. He had been allowed to. His distress calls were another marker, a moving one. They wanted us talking to you, I said. Eric looked confused. Why? Because every time we answered, they confirmed which units were close. His expression changed from confusion to horror. I told them your names. No, they made sure you did. I thought about every transmission since we entered the basin. Our voices, assignments, team locations, Avery asking for coordinates, fake Ruiz answering Dana. They weren't just listening to radio traffic. They were actively creating transmissions to map responses. Human sonar. A voice called from the vertical drainage grate. Luke? Not Eric. The first man. I moved toward it but stayed out of sight. Who are you? Open the grate. Name. Silence. Park employee number. Nothing. Then he said, You worked the Bell search. My chest tightened. Dana looked at me. Jordan Bell. The 19-year-old missing hiker from 8 years ago. The search where Caleb vanished. Who are you? You were 26. I stepped closer. How do you know that? You kept pushing west after command told you to stop. I remembered. Not because I wanted to, because I always remembered that day. Caleb and I had disagreed over the grid. I thought Jordan had drifted west toward the cliffs. Caleb believed somebody had been moving our boundary tape. At the time, I thought exhaustion had gotten to him. He went to check one of the markers alone. We never saw him again. Who are you? I asked. The man laughed softly, then, You don't remember my voice? My skin went cold despite the heat trapped in the drainage cut. Dana stared at me. I stepped right up to the grate. Caleb? The silence afterward felt enormous. Then the man said, Now you remember. I nearly pulled the grate off with my hands. Dana grabbed my shoulder. Luke, Caleb, move where I can see you. Nothing. Move to the grate. I can't. Why? Because they'll know. They already know we're here. No, his voice dropped. They know where you are. A pause. They don't know what you figured out. I looked at Dana, then back through the grate. What did I figure out? Caleb answered with the calm of someone who had repeated the same sentence in his head for years. The markers aren't there to guide the searchers. I know. They're not even there to herd you. That surprised me. What are they for? To measure you. I said nothing. They move a marker, Caleb continued. Then they watch what you do. Who checks it? Who reports it? Who ignores command? Who follows procedure? Who breaks it? They build a profile. Dana whispered, Of who? Caleb heard her. Of the person they want. I felt something settle heavily in my stomach. Who do they want? Caleb answered, The next search leader. A sound came from the tunnel behind him, metal scraping concrete. Caleb's voice changed instantly. "They're coming." "Toward you?" Yes." "Get to Eric." "No." "Caleb, you don't understand." His breathing quickened. "They didn't keep me alive because I escaped them." He stopped. When he spoke again, the shame in his voice was unmistakable. "They kept me alive because I helped them." Dana's hand slowly moved toward her radio, even though it was switched off. I stared into the dark grate. "What did you help them do?" Caleb whispered, "Build the search that brought you here." Then somebody inside the tunnel screamed. Not Caleb. "Eric!" I turned. The young photographer's face disappeared from beneath the horizontal grate as something dragged him backward into the dark. Dana dropped to the opening. "Eric!" His hands clawed against the concrete. "Help me!" I grabbed his wrist. Dana caught the other. For 1 second we had him. Then a tremendous pull came from inside. Eric shouted. My shoulders slammed against the ground, and from somewhere beneath us a man said calmly, "Phase 2. The lights inside the buried tunnel came on, one after another. Stretching west beneath the desert, every 20 feet taped to the wall was an orange marker. Each one had a ranger's name written on it. The closest read, Ruiz. The next, Moss. Farther down, Avery. And at the very end of the illuminated tunnel, beneath the pump house, one final strip hung from the ceiling. Mercer. Under my name was a single word. Selected. I didn't have time to process the word selected. Eric's arm was slipping through my hands. "Dana!" She threw herself flat beside me and caught the back of his jacket. The force pulling from inside stopped. Not gradually, instantly, Eric collapsed forward against the grate. For half a second, nothing moved. Then a man's voice echoed through the tunnel. "Good." It wasn't Caleb. It wasn't the fake ranger from the ridge. A third voice, older, controlled. "You don't abandon the subject." I felt anger burn through the fear. "This is a test?" No answer. I tightened my grip on Eric. "Help me lift." Dana hooked her fingers beneath the horizontal grate. We raised one side as far as the corroded hinges allowed. Eric shoved his shoulders through. The opening was too narrow. "Turn sideways," Dana told him. "I can't." "Why?" "My ankle's tied." I looked through the gap. A thin cord ran from Eric's boot into the darkness, not tied to his ankle, clipped to a harness strap around it, a tether. I drew my rescue knife. The opening wasn't wide enough to reach. "Eric, can you get to the clip?" "I can't see it. Feel along your right ankle." He disappeared briefly beneath us. A second later, "Got it." "Can you open it?" "No, it's locked." Of course it was. The man in the tunnel said, 6 minutes, Mercer." "To what?" No answer. Dana looked down the illuminated corridor. "Luke." At first, I didn't see what she meant. Then the nearest light went dark, the one beneath Ruiz. A second later, the next light went out. Moss, then the next. Avery. One by one, darkness was moving toward my name. Not a supernatural effect, a timer, a sequence. "Phase 2, Dana said. I looked at the tunnel layout. Lights. Markers. Eric tethered, a voice grading my decisions. They weren't just trying to capture us. They were observing how I solved problems under pressure. Caleb had said they measured people. This was the measurement. I shoved my arm through the gap again and reached toward Eric's restraint. My fingertips barely touched the cable, steel, coated, too thick to cut with a rescue knife. "What's attached to the other end?" I asked. Eric twisted around. "I can't see." "Follow it." He crawled backward several feet. The tether tightened. "It's through a ring in the floor." "Past the ring?" "Runs west. Pulley system. Someone deeper inside controlled it." That explained the sudden pull. "Dana, I need your leash." She looked at Bowie. "The long line?" "Yes." She unclipped the 30-foot tracking lead and handed me the free end. I tied a bowline around one of the horizontal grate bars. What are you doing? Changing what they're pulling against. I fed the line through the opening. Eric, grab this. His hand appeared and took it. Clip it to your harness. He did. Now give me slack. I looped our side around the concrete vent pipe behind us and built a crude mechanical advantage with a carabiner. Dana understood. You're anchoring him outside. If they pull again, they fight the concrete. The voice in the tunnel spoke. Interesting, I shouted back. You want to grade me? Come closer. A soft laugh. No need. Another light went out. 2 remained before mine. Dana watched them. Whatever happens when they reach you, I don't want to find out. Neither did I. I looked at the vertical grate. The fake Ranger had shot at us to prevent entry there. The horizontal overflow had been booby-trapped. Every obvious access point was controlled, which meant the correct move wasn't entering. It was making them come out. I pulled Caleb's old map again. Pump house, tank, overflow. There was one other component every water system needed. A shutoff. I scanned the drainage cut. Dana, look for a valve box. She stared at me. Now? Old stock system. If this tunnel held a cistern, there had to be an isolation valve outside. And? And if the plumbing still exists, I want to know what they've done with it. We searched. 30 seconds. Nothing. Another light died. One left. Bowie suddenly began digging beside the ventilation pipe. Dana stopped. He smells something. The dog clawed through sand. Metal appeared. A circular utility lid. I dropped beside him and cleared the rest. The embossed lettering was almost gone. Main control. I laughed once, not because anything was funny. Because whoever built this place had spent years converting forgotten infrastructure into a controlled maze, and 8 inches of sand had hidden something they apparently no longer used. I jammed my field tool into the lid slot. It opened. Inside was an old valve stem, and beside it, something new. Electrical conduit, black cable, fresh connectors. Dana leaned over my shoulder. They ran the lights through here. Maybe more than the lights. I followed the conduit. It disappeared through the wall toward the tunnel. A small weatherproof junction box had been mounted beside the valve, padlocked. I smashed the plastic latch with the butt of my flashlight. Inside were 4 labeled breakers, lights, cameras, vent, door mag. My heartbeat slowed, not because I felt safe, because the mystery had just become mechanical. Cameras, ventilation, magnetic door locks, no monsters, no impossible forces. People had built this. The final light before my marker went dark. Dana pointed. Luke. My name remained illuminated at the far end. I put my hand on the breaker, marked Door MAG. The voice inside changed. For the first time, he sounded alarmed. Don't! That was all I needed. I flipped it. Somewhere underground, multiple heavy locks released at once. Metal clanged through the tunnel. Eric shouted. The tether around his ankle suddenly went slack. It's free! Dana grabbed him. Together we pulled. His shoulders cleared the opening, then his chest, then his injured leg. He screamed once when the ankle caught the edge, but seconds later, he was outside, alive. Dana dragged him behind the drainage berm. Inside the tunnel, somebody was running. More than one person. I switched off cameras, then lights. The underground corridor vanished into darkness. The last thing I saw before it disappeared was the orange marker bearing my name. Mercer selected. I killed the ventilation system too. The older man's calm voice vanished. Dana looked at me. Now what? A door slammed somewhere beneath the desert. Then another. They were moving. Forced to move. For the first time since the search began, they were reacting to us. I turned toward Eric. Can you walk? With help. Good. I gave him my shoulder. Dana took the other side. Bowie moved ahead. Behind us, from the buried tunnel, Caleb shouted through the darkness. Luke, I stopped. His voice came from the overflow opening. Don't leave me here. Dana looked at me. 6 years ago, hesitation during a rescue had cost me sleep for months. 8 years ago, I had ignored Caleb when he told me the markers were wrong. Every part of me wanted to go back. And that was exactly why I didn't move. Caleb, I called, tell me something only you and I would know. Silence. Then he said, the Bell search, second night. You gave me your last packet of peanut butter because I lied and said I hadn't eaten. My throat tightened. He continued, you told command I lost my radio because I was too embarrassed to admit I dropped it in the portable toilet. Dana looked at me. I closed my eyes for half a second. That was Caleb. Really Caleb. Then he said the one thing that made me understand the next part of their plan. Luke, you can't take Eric and me. Why not? Because that's the choice they built the test around. A door opened underground. Footsteps approached. Caleb's voice became urgent. They want to know who you save when you can't save everybody. The sentence hit exactly where they meant it to. Who do you save when you can't save everybody? That question had followed me for 8 years. Jordan Bell or Caleb Voss? Stay with the search plan or follow the volunteer who insisted somebody was moving our markers? Trust procedure or trust the person standing beside me? I had chosen the search plan. Jordan stayed missing. Caleb disappeared. For years, I had treated that night like a math problem with one wrong answer. Whoever built this operation knew that. Maybe they had known it before I entered the basin. Luke, Dana said. Footsteps echoed beneath us. Closer. Eric leaned heavily against my shoulder. His face had gone gray from pain and dehydration. Caleb was still underground, and the people who had designed all of this were waiting for me to prove something about myself. I almost laughed. No. Dana frowned. No what? I don't choose, Caleb shouted through the grate. You have to move. I know. I lowered Eric carefully to the ground. Then I opened my pack. Dana stared at me. What are you doing? Breaking their test. I pulled out my emergency signal mirror, 2 chemical light sticks, a roll of white medical tape, and the old handheld radio we had found near Caleb's backpack. It had no battery, but it didn't need one. I wrapped the chemical lights around it, taped them into a crude, glowing bundle, and handed it to Dana. Take Bowie and Eric east. Without you? 200 yards. Stay low. Put that radio somewhere visible, then double back south. She understood. You want them following the wrong group. I want them making decisions. Eric shook his head. I can't move fast. You don't need fast. You need quiet. The underground footsteps stopped. They were listening. Good. I raised my voice. Dana, get Eric out. I'll get Caleb. Her eyes flicked to mine. The lie was for whoever was below. She played along immediately. Luke, that's insane. Go. She hooked Eric's arm over her shoulder and moved east with Bowie. I waited until they disappeared behind the drainage berm. Then I returned to the utility box. The 4 breakers were still down. Lights, cameras, vent, door mag. I traced the electrical conduit again. The cable didn't stop at the tunnel. It continued farther east toward another buried junction. A system this elaborate required power, not batteries, not for cameras, magnetic locks, lights, and ventilation running across a 100-yard tunnel. There had to be a generator, or a feed from the pump house. Either way, power gave them control, and control left infrastructure. I took my compass and followed the conduit line beneath the sand. Caleb called again. Luke, I'm here. You need to leave. Tell me where they keep the generator. Silence. That was answer enough. You know. I know a lot of things I shouldn't. Then start paying some of it back. The footsteps below resumed, faster now. Caleb said, north side of the pump house, buried enclosure, diesel. Fuel shut off? Manual valve inside. How many people? I've seen 5. Today? 4. Armed? Dart projectors, tasers, one handgun I've seen? That last part mattered. Who runs them? Another pause. His name is Warren Pike. Never heard it. What does he want? He recruits. For what? Searches. I waited. Caleb continued. Not park service searches, private ones. For missing people? For people who don't want to be found. I stared toward the western cliffs. That answer rearranged everything. Fake uniforms, cloned vehicles, SAR knowledge, search grids, radios. Warren Pike wasn't obsessed with hurting rescuers. He was studying them, training them, selecting them. For kidnappings? I asked. Sometimes. Jesus! Sometimes fugitives, sometimes witnesses, runaways with money behind them, people hiding from spouses, people hiding from police. Pike doesn't care. If someone can pay, he finds them. And if they don't want to be found, he calls that the point. The horror of it was almost disappointingly human. No ancient thing beneath the sand, no impossible voice, just expertise sold without conscience. Caleb said, the best searchers think like the lost person. Pike wanted people who could do that under pressure. So he took you. He offered me a choice. You disappeared. I failed the first test. That confused me. What does failing look like? I saved the wrong person. I heard movement near the vertical hatch. A metallic scrape. Someone was opening it from below. I backed away. Caleb, what person? Jordan. Everything inside me stopped. What? He wasn't lost. I couldn't speak. Caleb's voice came faster. Jordan Bell was working with Pike. The memory came back in pieces. 19 years old, blue backpack. His mother crying at command. The abandoned campsite. Footprints that kept appearing just beyond completed sectors. Every clue drawing us deeper west. Jordan hadn't been the victim. He had been Eric. The bait, but willing. You knew? Not until the 3rd night. And you didn't tell us? I tried. You told me somebody moved the tape. I didn't know who was listening. The vertical hatch shifted. A gap opened. I moved behind the drainage bank. Caleb whispered. Pike offered me a job. Said I had the instincts. I refused. Then why did you stay? I didn't. The hatch opened another inch. I tried to escape. A hand appeared through the gap. Not Caleb's. Gloved. Holding a compact dart projector. I picked up a fist-sized rock and threw it hard toward the eastern ridge. It struck stone 30 yards away. The hand instantly swung toward the sound. They were expecting me to run toward Dana. I moved west instead. Toward the pump house. Behind me, the hatch opened. Someone climbed out. I stayed below the dunes and followed the buried conduit. My radio remained off. No markers, no whistles. No map. For the first time all afternoon, I was moving through the basin without accepting a single piece of information they had provided. That felt better than it should have. The pump house appeared ahead. A low concrete building against the cliffs. One broken window, rust-red roof. Beside it, half disguised beneath a sheet of weathered plywood, I found a steel access lid. Generator enclosure, locked. I didn't bother with the lock. I used the Halligan bar from the exterior emergency box mounted on the pump house wall. 2 hits. The hasp broke. Diesel fumes rolled out. Inside, a modern generator hummed beneath sound insulation. Fresh fuel cans lined the wall. Charging stations held radios, camera batteries, tablet computers. A row of Park Service shirts hung from hooks. And pinned above the workbench were photographs. Search teams, dozens of them. Different parks, different states, some dating back years. People in orange vests carrying litters. Dog handlers, incident commanders, helicopter crews. Faces were circled, names written beside them. Some marked rejected, some pending, some active. Then I found mine. A photograph from the Bell search 8 years earlier. I was 26, standing beside Caleb. Jordan's missing person poster visible behind us. Across Caleb's face, somebody had drawn a black X. Across mine, revisit. Below it was a newer photograph, taken that morning. Me stepping out of my truck at command. Written beneath it, Mercer Final Evaluation. Behind me, someone said, "You were always the better candidate." I turned. Paul Avery stood in the doorway, my incident commander, my supervisor, the man who had ordered me back to command. He held no weapon. He didn't need one. He looked at the photographs, then at me, and quietly closed the door behind him. Paul Avery stood in the doorway like he had every right to be there. For 4 years, I had watched that man coordinate evacuations, manage fatality recoveries, talk panicked families through the worst hours of their lives, and send exhausted Rangers home when they were too stubborn to admit they needed sleep. Seeing him inside that room made every one of those memories feel contaminated. "Move away from the door," I said. He looked at the Halligan bar in my hands. "You're not going to hit me with that." "You seem pretty confident." "Because if you thought I was Pike, you would have already done it." That irritated me because he was right. Paul removed his radio and placed it on the floor. Then his phone. Then his sidearm, still holstered. He kicked all three toward me. "I didn't bring you here." I looked at the photographs covering the wall. My picture says otherwise. "Pike brought you here." "You gave him a search." "I gave him an opportunity to expose himself." "Using Eric." "No." "Using Dana?" "No." "Kelly?" "No." "Then explain why my people are walking around inside somebody's recruitment exam." Paul rubbed both hands over his face. For the first time, he looked tired rather than controlled. 8 years ago, after Caleb disappeared, we found evidence. What evidence? Not enough. That isn't an answer. A duplicate Park Service truck was seen outside the southern gate. 2 hikers reported talking to a ranger who didn't exist. Radio traffic showed transmissions from unit numbers that weren't assigned. And you buried it. Federal investigators took it. I stared at him. Investigators? They believed Caleb might have joined a private search network. Joined? At the time, that's what the evidence suggested. I thought of Caleb's voice underground. I just spoke to him. Paul's eyes sharpened. Where? Why? Because until 10 minutes ago, I didn't know whether he was alive. That sounded genuine. I hated that I couldn't trust sounding genuine anymore. "What is Pike?" I asked. Paul glanced at the photographs. Former county SAR coordinator, private recovery consultant after that, extremely good tracker, better organizer, lost his certifications after an investigation into several searches where evidence had been manipulated. How long ago? 11 years. And nobody arrested him? Manipulating a search isn't easy to prove when everyone involved thinks they're helping. He nodded toward the wall. Pike learned something during legitimate SAR work. Searchers are predictable because they have to be. We establish probability zones. We assign grids. We protect evidence. We announce movements. We document decisions. And he weaponized it. Yes. Paul stepped toward the generator. I raised the Halligan. "Stay there." "Chi." He stopped. "He sells teams to people with money." "I know." His expression shifted. "Caleb told you." "Some." "Then he probably told you Pike recruits from real searches." "He did." "What he may not have told you is that Pike doesn't usually kidnap candidates." I frowned. He creates failures. What does that mean? He puts a good searcher in a situation where procedure doesn't work. Then he makes sure somebody gets hurt because of it. The photographs on the wall suddenly looked different. Not applications, trauma records. He breaks their faith in the system, Paul continued. Then he offers them a system where breaking rules is rewarded. That's stupid. It works. On who? Paul pointed toward the photographs. People who already think they're smarter than command. I almost laughed. So me. Yes. At least you're consistent. Luke, look at what you've done today. I tightened my grip on the bar. What exactly? You ignored your assignment? Because the markers were fake. You disobeyed command. Because you withheld information. You shut down a facility you didn't understand. Because people were trapped inside. You abandoned radio procedure, moved outside your search grid, created your own authentication methods, trusted a dog over command, and turned a rescue into an independent investigation. He paused. Pike isn't testing whether you're competent. I knew what he was about to say. He's testing whether I'll stop trusting you. Paul nodded. And right now, he's winning. That landed harder than I wanted it to. Outside, an engine started. Not the generator, a vehicle. Paul turned toward the door. They're moving. How do you know? Because this room isn't supposed to be found until the evaluation ends. He pointed to my photograph. Once a candidate sees the archive, Pike assumes the site is burned. A distant horn sounded, 2 short blasts, then 1 long. Paul's face changed. What? He moved toward the door. I blocked him. What does that mean? Recall signal. For who? Everyone. I thought of Dana, Eric, and Bowie moving east, Kelly withdrawing south, Caleb underground. How many exits? Paul looked at the old pump system diagram painted faintly on the concrete wall. 3 vehicle routes, 1 tunnel exit north, 1 west. They'll split. They won't. Why? Pike doesn't leave people behind. I thought about the sentence. It sounded almost admirable until I remembered what kind of people we were discussing. Paul picked up his radio from the floor. I raised the bar again. Don't. We need command. You are command. No, he met my eyes. Not anymore. Before I could ask what he meant, a voice came from the radio even though Paul hadn't touched the transmit button. Correct. Warren Pike. Calm, close. Paul looked at the radio. I looked at the charging rack. Every unit suddenly lit at once. Pike's voice filled the generator enclosure from 6 speakers. Incident Commander Avery, your access has been revoked. Paul went pale. Pike continued. Candidate Mercer, you've exceeded expectations. I grabbed one of the radios and ripped its battery free. The others kept speaking. Your improvisation score is the highest we've recorded in 6 years. I started pulling batteries. Paul joined me. Pike laughed softly. You still think this is about recruitment? That stopped us. The final radio on the rack crackled. You were selected 8 years ago, Luke. I stared at it. This wasn't your evaluation. A pause. This was Caleb's. From somewhere beneath the pump house came a heavy metallic impact, then another. Paul looked at the floor. Pike's voice returned. 8 years is a long time to wonder whether a man is loyal. The underground impact came again. 3 strikes, pause, 3 strikes, Caleb's signal. Pike said, so we gave him one final assignment. My stomach dropped. Bring back the Ranger he failed to recruit. The generator suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed the room. And in the silence, Paul whispered, Luke, Caleb didn't lead you away from them. I heard the outer door close. He led them to you. The generator room was completely dark. For maybe 2 seconds, neither of us moved. Then Paul said, "Don't turn on your flashlight." I already had my hand on it. Why? If Pike killed the generator, he wants us using our own lights. So the cameras may have backup power. Good point. I slid the flashlight back into its holder. The room had one small exterior window. Enough dusk leaked through it to turn the doorway and workbench into gray shapes. I could hear the generator's engine ticking as it cooled, then another sound. Footsteps outside, slow, measured. Paul whispered, "Back wall." We moved between the generator and a row of fuel cans. The footsteps stopped outside the door. No handle moved, no voice. 30 seconds passed. Then something scraped across the exterior concrete. A strip of tape appeared beneath the door. Orange. Paul and I looked at each other. I crouched and pulled it inside. One line. Avery failed. Paul stared at it. "That one's new." "You're joking." I'm trying not to panic. The footsteps moved away. I pocketed the tape. "What does Pike think you failed?" Paul didn't answer immediately. 8 years ago, I was one of the investigators assigned after Caleb disappeared. You weren't superintendent then. Operations Ranger. And? We found indications somebody inside the search had been feeding Pike information. I waited. Paul's voice dropped. "We thought it was Caleb? That doesn't make sense." "It did then. He vanished. Evidence went missing with him. Pike disappeared from the region within 48 hours. And now? Now I think Caleb was forced to help him." That matched what Caleb had told us, but not all of it. Why would Pike test him after 8 years? Because people like Pike don't trust loyalty they have to purchase. "You sound like you know him." "I've spent 8 years studying him." "Quietly?" "Yes." "Without telling the Rangers he was targeting?" Paul turned toward me. "If I had told every Ranger in the district that a former SAR coordinator was impersonating personnel, manipulating searches and selecting rescuers for illegal work, what would happen? We'd be prepared." "No, we'd see him everywhere." He pointed toward the door. "Every unusual marker becomes Pike. Every broken radio becomes Pike. Every lost hiker who makes a bad decision becomes bait. Eventually, the district can't run a normal search. So you hid it. I limited it. That's what people say when they hide something." A metallic thump came from beneath the floor. "Caleb, 3 strikes. Pause. 3 strikes. Still alive." I moved toward the rear wall. "Where does that tunnel connect?" Paul whispered, "Utility corridor beneath us." "Access?" "Interior hatch in the pump room." "That sounds like an obvious entrance." "It is." "Then I'm not using it." Paul almost smiled. "You're learning Pike's game." "No, I'm getting tired of everybody's game." I searched the room by touch. Workbench, fuel shelf, battery chargers, a steel cabinet. Then my hand found a cold vertical pipe running down the wall. Ventilation. The generator enclosure needed intake and exhaust. Not enough for a person, but maybe enough to communicate. I put my ear against the pipe. At first, nothing. Then faintly, breathing. "Caleb?" No response. I tapped 3 times. Waited. 3 taps answered from below. Paul moved beside me. "That him?" "Maybe." I tapped twice, then once. A pattern Caleb and I had used years ago during litter training when radio chatter was too heavy for verbal commands. 2-1 meant confirm identity. From below, 2 taps. 1. My chest tightened. Definitely Caleb. I leaned toward the pipe. "Can you hear me?" His voice came faintly through the metal. "Barely." "Where are you?" "Below generator room." "Alone?" "No." Paul and I looked at each other. "How many?" "1 with me, maybe 2 farther west." "Pike?" "No." Can you reach the pump room hatch? Locked. We killed the magnets? Mechanical backup. Of course. Can you get out another way? Silence, then. Maybe. What does maybe mean? It means Pike built a maintenance crawl space nobody else uses. That sounded promising. Where? North wall, behind old filtration tank. Paul whispered, "There is no filtration tank." Caleb heard him. There was. I looked at Paul. How old are your plans? What are your plans? Current plans. That's not what I asked. Current plans were digitized in 2004. Caleb gave a weak laugh through the pipe. Pike loves records that begin after the useful part. I remembered Caleb's hand-drawn map. Old infrastructure, decommissioned systems, buried pathways. Pike's advantage wasn't magic. It was institutional forgetting. The park had stopped remembering what it built. He hadn't. "Caleb," I said, "can you reach that crawl space?" "I can." "Then move." He went quiet, too quiet. "Caleb?" "I can't bring the other guy." "What other guy?" A different voice came faintly through the pipe. "That's me." Young, strained, not anyone I recognized. "My name is Owen Price." Paul's head snapped toward the pipe. He knew the name. I saw it immediately. "Who is Owen?" Paul whispered. "Missing seasonal ranger." "When?" 3 years ago." My stomach turned. I leaned closer. "Owen, are you injured?" "My leg's chained to a floor bracket." Paul closed his eyes. Pike's question returned. "Who do you save when you can't save everybody?" Not a metaphor, a repeated design. Caleb 8 years ago, now Owen. They had built the same decision into the tunnel. Caleb whispered, "Luke, if I stay and try to free him, Pike wins." Owen answered immediately, "If you leave me, Pike wins too." Nobody spoke. Then I understood. That was the trick. Not choosing wrong, believing there were only two choices. I crouched beside the dead generator. "Paul, this system has diesel." "Yes." "Ventilation is off." "Yes." "If we restart the generator manually with the vents closed?" He stared at me. "Exhaust builds." "Fast?" "In that enclosure? Fast enough." I shook my head. Not for them. He understood. For Pike. The underground team would expect us to either flee or descend. Instead, we could force an evacuation. Smoke alarms, heat, carbon monoxide sensors, emergency procedures. People abandon controlled positions when the environment itself becomes unsafe. I reached for the generator starter. Paul grabbed my arm. "Luke, if the exhaust routes into the tunnel..." "I know." "Then Owen and Caleb get it too. Unless we open the old overflow." He looked at me. The horizontal grate, fresh air from outside, a second airflow path, not perfect, but enough to change the pressure. I said, "We don't choose who gets left." Paul nodded slowly. "We make everyone move." Outside, an engine revved, then another. Pike's people were preparing to leave. We had minutes, maybe less. I turned the generator starter. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared back to life. Without ventilation, the enclosure immediately filled with a heavy smell of diesel exhaust. Paul pulled his shirt over his nose. "Now what?" "Now we make sure they think something is burning." I grabbed an emergency flare from the wall kit. Paul stared at me. "You're not lighting that in here." "No," I smiled despite myself. "I'm putting it where Pike can see it." We opened the rear service door just enough to throw the flare outside. Red light exploded against the pump house wall. Within seconds, one of Pike's radios somewhere outside screamed, "Fire!" Another voice answered, "Generator side!" Then Warren Pike himself came over the channel. For the first time since I had heard him, he sounded rushed. Evacuate the tunnel. Beneath our feet, metal doors began opening. Chains rattled, boots ran, and through the pipe, Caleb whispered, "That's the first mistake I've ever heard him make." The tunnel evacuation started chaotically. That was good. Chaos meant Pike had stopped controlling every variable. Paul and I stayed low beside the generator enclosure, while voices moved beneath us. Doors slammed. Someone shouted for the north exit. Another person yelled that the main corridor was filling with exhaust. Then Warren Pike came over one of the radios. "North team, secure Price. South team, take Voss. Nobody leaves alone." Caleb had been right. Pike didn't leave people behind. He collected them. I leaned toward the ventilation pipe. "Caleb." No answer. "Caleb, move now." Metal scraped below, then his voice, working on it. "What about Owen?" "He's still chained." Paul whispered, "We need that bracket open." I looked at the generator controls. The magnetic locks were disabled. The cameras were down, but Owen's chain was mechanical. Another deliberate choice. Pike always left one problem technology couldn't solve, something that required a person. I grabbed the Halligan bar. Paul blocked me. "You go down there and this becomes his test again." "Not if I know that's what it is." "That doesn't make bullets less real." "He has one handgun." "One we've seen." "Fair." Then a voice outside shouted, "Movement east!" Dana, my stomach tightened. Another voice answered, "Dog team?" "Yes." Pike came on the radio. "Leave them." That surprised me. Paul heard it too. "Why would he leave Ruiz?" "Because I'm here." The words came out before I consciously formed them. The wall photograph. Mercer final evaluation. Caleb's assignment. Everything revolved around bringing me here. Dana and Eric mattered only while they influenced my decisions. Now Pike had me inside his archive. He didn't need them. That gave us an advantage. Paul called Dana. "You shut the radios down." "Not all of them." I grabbed his personal unit from the floor and inserted a fresh battery from the charging rack. It powered up. "Don't use tactical," Paul said. "I know." We switched to a seldom-used administrative frequency. "Ruiz, Mercer." Nothing. Again. "Ruiz, Mercer, admin 2. Static. Then. "Go." Her real voice. Relief hit harder than I expected. "Status." "Eric's with me. Bowie too. We're near the southern wash." "Anybody following?" "Not anymore." "Good. Get Eric out." "What about you?" "I'm with Avery." A pause. "That does not make me feel better." Paul rolled his eyes despite everything. I almost smiled. "Dana, listen. Do not come back for us." "Luke, that's not a sacrifice speech. I need you somewhere else." She went quiet. "Where?" "Command." Paul looked at me. I continued. "Get every legitimate ranger out of the basin and lock down every vehicle. Nobody leaves unless you personally recognize them." "What if command refuses?" I looked at Paul. He nodded. "Tell Kelly that Avery transfers operational authority to Ruiz immediately." Dana went silent. Then, "Paul's actually there?" He took the radio. "Unfortunately." "Authentication." He frowned. Dana said, "What did you give me for Christmas?" Paul looked offended. "Nothing." "Correct." I took the radio back. "Dana, get command under control. Then call law enforcement on a hard line. No open radio details." "Copy." "And Dana?" "Yeah?" "If you see me before I call you again, don't trust me." She didn't joke. "Understood." We killed the radio. Beneath us, someone screamed, not in pain, in anger. Then Caleb shouted, "Luke!" I ran to the ventilation pipe. "What?" "They're taking Owen west." "How?" "Release the chain." Of course they had. The impossible choice had never been impossible for Pike. He controlled the lock. Can you follow? I can. Don't. Luke, where's the north crawl space? Behind me. Use it. They'll take Owen. I know. Silence. I could practically feel Caleb resisting. 8 years of guilt. 8 years of being trained to believe every decision meant choosing who deserved to be abandoned. Caleb, I said, if you follow them, you give Pike exactly what he wants. And if I leave Owen? You don't leave him. I looked toward Paul. We tracked the person moving him. Paul understood. Surface exits. Yes. Pike couldn't keep Owen underground forever if the site was being abandoned. And if Dana secured command, every legitimate exit route would become hostile territory for Pike. We didn't need to chase them through their maze. We needed to let them exit it. Caleb, I said, take the crawl space north. Get outside. What about you? We'll meet you on the surface. You trust Avery? No, Paul sighed, appreciated. But I trust that he wants Pike. That was enough. Caleb disappeared from the pipe. We heard crawling, then nothing. Paul checked his watch. Sunset in 45 minutes. Good. He gave me a strange look. Good? Pike built this around observing people. I nodded toward the dead cameras. Let him lose visibility. The generator continued coughing exhaust into its enclosure. The flare outside had burned down enough that the red glow was fading. Paul moved toward the door. We need out. I opened it carefully. No one visible. The pump house stood 20 yards away. Beyond it, the basin rolled toward the western cliffs. An engine started somewhere behind the building, then another. I saw a tan SUV moving north along an old maintenance track, unmarked, dark windows. Pike? I asked. Maybe. A second vehicle followed, then a Park Service pickup emerged. Same green stripe, same district markings, same unit number as mine. The clone. Paul whispered, that's how he planned to leave. As me, or with you. The pickup stopped. Driver door opened. The fake ranger from the ridge stepped out. He looked toward us, no dart projector this time. His right hand hovered near his belt. Paul said, don't. I wasn't. The man called across the open ground, Mercer! I said nothing. He smiled. Warren wants to talk. Tell Warren to come outside. He is outside. That bothered me. I scanned the ridges, the pump house, the maintenance track. Nothing. Then Paul said quietly, Luke. He was looking at the fake version of my truck. Someone sat in the passenger seat, head lowered, hands bound. Owen Price. The fake ranger opened the rear door. Get in. He wasn't talking to Owen. He was looking at me. Or we take him? I almost laughed. There it was again, the choice. Walk willingly into the vehicle or let somebody else pay for refusing. Pike hadn't changed the test. He had only made it more visible, so I did the one thing he hadn't built into it. I turned my back on Owen. Paul stared at me. The fake ranger shouted, Mercer! I kept walking toward the pump house. Luke, Paul whispered, what are you doing? Showing him the test is over. Behind us, the man yelled, he dies if you leave. I stopped, not because of the threat, because of the wording. Dies. Everything Pike had done so far depended on keeping people useful. Eric alive, Caleb alive, Owen alive for 3 years. Pike didn't waste assets. I turned around. You're lying. The fake ranger's expression changed. Just slightly. Enough. You don't kill candidates, I called. No answer. You don't even kill bait unless you lose control. Paul looked at me. The man beside the truck took one step backward. I kept going. You need Owen alive because he's still useful. Another step. And you need me believing every decision has a body attached to it. The passenger door opened. Owen looked up. He shouted, "Don't come over here!" The fake ranger struck the door shut. Too late. Owen had just confirmed what I needed. He wasn't resigned. He knew we had a chance. Then a voice came from behind me. Close, calm. Excellent. Paul froze. I turned. Warren Pike stood in the pump house doorway, older than I expected. Gray hair, work shirt, no uniform. No mask, nothing theatrical. Just a man holding a compact handgun low against his thigh. He looked at me with something almost like pride. "You finally stopped rescuing the problem I gave you." Then he raised the gun and started solving the one I didn't. Pike's gun came up, but not all the way. That mattered. If he had wanted me dead, he wouldn't have been talking. Paul saw it too. "Warren," he said. Pike barely looked at him. "Paul, you're finished." Pike smiled. "You've said that twice before. Not with 23 witnesses in the basin." "Witnesses to what?" He gestured toward the pump house. "An abandoned utility site? Unauthorized uniforms? A missing photographer who wandered into a restricted area? You kidnapped him? Can you prove who did?" "Caleb can." Something moved behind Pike's eyes, small, there and gone. That was the first time I'd seen anyone surprise him. "You found Caleb," he said. "I spoke to him." Pike's attention returned completely to me. "Then you know he's been helping me." "I know you spent 8 years making sure he believed that." The gun rose another inch. Paul whispered, "Careful." I ignored him. "That's your whole system, isn't it?" Pike didn't answer. "You don't recruit rescuers. You manufacture guilt." His jaw tightened. "You create a situation with 2 bad choices, then make someone live with whichever one they pick. Reduction is useful." "Reduction?" "Pressure removes performance." He nodded toward me. "People tell you who they are when options disappear." I looked at Owen's silhouette through the truck window. "No. People show you who they are when they believe the options you gave them are the only ones available." Pike smiled again. This time there was no warmth in it. "And yet, you're still standing exactly where I wanted you." He was right about one thing. The pump house, the trucks, the generator, the tunnel. All of it was his ground. I glanced at the sand beyond the maintenance road. Open dunes, no buried tunnels, no cameras I knew about, no infrastructure. Wind was already shaving thin sheets of sand off the ridgelines as evening cooled the basin. My ground didn't need to be familiar. It only needed to be less familiar to him. I took one slow step backward. Pike raised the gun. "Stop!" I stopped. "Hands where I can see them." I lowered the Halligan bar. Not dropped, lowered. "Luke," Paul said quietly. I looked at Pike. "You want me alive. Don't test how much. You didn't shoot Caleb 8 years ago." "No." "You kept Owen 3 years." Pike's face remained still. "You kept Eric alive." "Your point?" "My point is that every person you hold is leverage. Dead people don't make decisions for you." Pike glanced toward the fake ranger by the truck. That glance lasted less than a second, but it told me something. The man beside Owen was not improvising independently. He was waiting for Pike. Everyone was. The operation looked decentralized because people were spread across miles of terrain. It wasn't. It had one center, Warren Pike. I looked at Paul. "Run!" Paul stared at me. Pike said, "Don't!" I shouted, "Now!" Paul sprinted left. Pike's gun followed him automatically. I went right. A shot cracked across the basin. Dust jumped somewhere behind Paul, not a dart. Real gunshot. I hit the ground behind the low concrete lip of the generator enclosure. The fake ranger by the truck shouted. Pike shouted louder. "Hold position!" Again, everyone stopped for him, even with the plan collapsing. I crawled behind the enclosure and slid into a shallow drainage cut leading south. Paul had disappeared behind the pump house. Pike didn't fire again. I heard him moving, not chasing, repositioning. He expected me to head east toward Dana, so I went west, straight toward the cliffs. The drainage deepened just enough to hide me. I removed my radio, switched it on, and changed to the administrative channel. Dana, static. Dana Mercer. Her answer came low. Go. Command secure? Mostly. Mostly wasn't a word I liked. What does that mean? Kelly has legitimate staff accounted for. 2 vehicles left before we lock the road. Pikes. Probably. Law enforcement? On the way. How long? Closest county unit is 25 minutes. Too long. What about park units? Coming from the south entrance. Good. Dana paused. Luke, where are you? I looked at the cliffs. Doing something stupid. That doesn't narrow it down. Despite everything, I smiled. Keep everyone away from the western maintenance road. Why? Because I'm going to make Pike follow me. No? Dana, no. You spent all afternoon realizing this guy creates choices for people, and now you're volunteering to be one? That landed. She was right. So I changed the plan while speaking. I don't need him to follow me. What do you need? I looked at the wind-driven sand crossing the maintenance track. His vehicles. Silence. Then Dana understood. You're going after the road. Not the road. The western maintenance track crossed the base of 3 large dunes before bending north. During a high wind, we closed it because sand buried sections faster than crews could clear them. Tonight's wind wasn't high, but the evening gusts were strengthening. And the track was narrow. 1 vehicle could pass, 2 couldn't. Pike depended on controlled exits, so I would remove 1. Luke, Dana said, don't get yourself run over. I'll put that in the plan. I shut off the radio. Ahead, the drainage climbed toward the first dune. I crawled until the pump house disappeared behind me. Then I stood and ran, not along the maintenance track. Across it, up the dune, sand stole half of every step. Behind me, an engine roared. They had seen me. Good. The cloned Park Service truck accelerated onto the track. I reached the dune crest and didn't go down the other side. Instead, I turned north along the ridge. The truck followed below. Exactly what a driver would do if trying to stay parallel with someone on foot. Exactly what I wanted. The ridge narrowed. Wind hit harder. Sand streamed over my boots. 30 yards ahead was a section of dune I knew from seasonal road closures. A soft slip face. Stable from above. Unstable when undercut from below. The maintenance track ran directly beneath it. I stopped. The truck slowed. Pike's voice came from somewhere behind the engine. Luke! I couldn't see whether he was inside. Didn't matter. I stepped onto the slip face. Then I ran sideways across it. The surface broke. At first only around my boots. Then a whole sheet of sand began sliding. Not an avalanche. Nothing dramatic. Just several tons of loose dune face pouring slowly downhill, straight across the maintenance track. The truck braked. Too late. Sand piled around the front tires. The driver tried reversing. More sand slid. The rear wheels spun. The vehicle settled to its axles. 1 exit gone. I stood above them on the ridge. The fake ranger climbed out, furious. Owen was still inside. Then another door opened. Warren Pike stepped from the truck. He looked up at me. For the first time all day, he wasn't smiling. And behind him on the maintenance road, the second SUV appeared around the bend. It stopped because Pike's truck blocked the track. 2 vehicles, 1 narrow road. No clean exit. Then, from somewhere north of us, a whistle sounded. Not 3 blasts, 2. Pause. 1. The old litter training signal. Caleb. Pike heard it. His head snapped toward the sound, and in that moment I realized Caleb had reached the surface. Caleb whistled again. 2. Pause. 1. Pike didn't look at me anymore. He looked north. That told me more than the signal itself. Caleb frightened him. Not because Caleb was stronger, because Caleb knew the system. "Find him," Pike said. The fake ranger beside the truck hesitated. "Warren, now!" The man moved north along the buried road. Pike pointed toward the SUV behind them. "Transfer price." The SUV's driver got out, a woman. Tan field shirt, dark cargo pants, no insignia. I recognized her voice before I recognized anything else. Fake Ruiz. She opened the rear door of Pike's truck. Owen shouted immediately. "Don't touch me!" She grabbed his arm. Pike looked back up at me. "You made your point." I stayed on the dune. "What point?" "You can disrupt a system." He gestured towards the sand around the truck. "Congratulations." "You sound disappointed." "I am." "Because I didn't get in?" "Because you still think getting away means winning." The woman pulled Owen from the truck. His right leg buckled. She caught him before he hit the ground. Not kindness, utility. She needed him mobile. Pike continued. "You have one missing civilian recovered, one ranger compromised, one former ranger who's been working with me for 8 years. Your incident commander is separated from you. Your dog handler is miles away." He spread his hands. "And you're standing on a dune. You forgot the county units?" That made him pause, only slightly, but enough. "You heard that?" "I arranged it." His eyes hardened. There, something he hadn't known. Dana had gotten the message through. The information flow wasn't his anymore. I said, "You should probably leave." Pike smiled. "I intend to." The woman started helping Owen toward the SUV. That was the problem. The blocked road had delayed them. It hadn't trapped them. They could abandon the truck, move Owen 50 yards, load him into the second vehicle, and reverse out. I needed more than terrain. I needed time. I looked north. No Caleb, no fake ranger either. Then a figure appeared briefly between 2 low ridges. Caleb. He was wearing a faded shirt and old field pants, thinner than the man in the photograph. Older in a way 8 years didn't fully explain. He lifted one hand, then pointed, not toward Pike, toward the SUV. I followed the gesture, rear tire. At first I saw nothing. Then I noticed a thin line running from the wheel well into the sand. Caleb had rigged something. Pike saw me looking. He turned. "Move!" he shouted. Fake Ruiz shoved Owen toward the SUV. The driver door was still open. She was 5 steps away when Caleb pulled the line. A metal stake snapped free from beneath the vehicle. Nothing exploded. No trap fired. The SUV simply rolled. The maintenance track sloped toward the dune. The driver had left it in neutral. Caleb had removed whatever was keeping it stationary. The SUV picked up speed. Fake Ruiz jumped aside. The vehicle rolled backward 10 feet. 20. Then its rear tires dropped off the compacted road into soft sand. The chassis tilted. The front wheels followed. Within seconds, half the SUV was buried in the shoulder. Caleb appeared on the ridge above it. "Both exits," he shouted. Pike drew his handgun. Caleb disappeared. The shot went into empty sand. "Stop shooting!" Owen yelled. Pike ignored him. He started up the dune toward Caleb. That was when I moved, downhill, fast. Pike was looking north. Fake Ruiz was trying to drag Owen away from the stuck SUV. The other man was searching for Caleb. Nobody expected me to leave the high ground. I hit the bottom of the slip face and ran toward Owen. The woman saw me at 30 yards. "Warren!" Pike turned. Too late. I reached Owen. Fake Ruiz let him go and reached toward her belt. I slammed my shoulder into her before she could pull whatever was there. We both went down. No punches. No dramatic fight. Just sand, elbows, and two exhausted people trying to get leverage. She grabbed my radio harness. I caught her wrist. Something fell from her belt. A dart projector. I kicked it away. She twisted free and ran. Not toward Pike, toward the open desert. That surprised me. Pike saw it too. "Marla!" She didn't stop. He shouted again. "Marla!" Nothing. The system was breaking from the edges inward. Owen grabbed my sleeve. "My leg!" I got under his arm. "Can you put any weight on it?" "Some?" "Then we're moving." We headed away from the vehicles, not toward the pump house, not toward Dithy Dana. Southwest, across open hardpan, Pike came down the dune after us. He still had the gun. "Owen," I said, "when I tell you, drop." "What?" "Just trust me." Pike was 40 yards behind, then 35. He didn't fire. Again, that mattered. "Owen," I said, 25. Pike shouted, "Luke, stop." I kept walking. "You know I won't let you take him." That sentence gave me the timing. Now. Owen dropped. I dropped with him. A dart passed over us, not a bullet. I looked back. Pike wasn't holding the handgun anymore. He had switched to a projector. He needed us alive. I laughed. Pike heard it. His face changed. "You keep proving me right," I called. He raised the projector again. "No," I said, "you keep proving me right." A whistle sounded behind Pike. 2, pause, 1. He turned. Caleb stood 20 yards away holding Pike's handgun, not aimed at him, held low. Exactly the way Pike had held it at the pump house. Pike stared. "Caleb!" Caleb's hand was shaking. "You told me every search ends with a choice." Pike said nothing. "You told me people only reveal themselves when somebody has to be left behind." "Put the gun down." Caleb looked at me, then at Owen, then at Pike. "No." Pike stepped toward him. Caleb didn't raise the weapon. He simply removed the magazine, then cleared the chamber. The single cartridge fell into the sand. He tossed the empty handgun aside. Pike actually looked confused. Caleb said, "I'm done taking your tests." Behind us, engines sounded in the distance, more than one, coming from the southern road. Legitimate units. Dana had done it. Pike heard them too. For the first time, real fear crossed his face. Not panic, calculation, routes, distances, time. He looked west. Cliffs, north. Buried road, south. Approaching units, east. Open dunes. Then he looked at me. I realized what he was doing because I had spent the entire day learning to recognize it. He was searching for the option somebody else had failed to control. The same thing I had been doing. And there was only one left. He ran east, straight into the dunes. Caleb started after him. I caught his arm. "No. He'll disappear." "Maybe. We can't let him." "We're not." I pointed toward the wind. Pike was already 50 yards away. His footprints were forming clearly in the soft evening sand. For the first time all day, he had no fake markers, no radio team, no vehicles, no hidden tunnel, no grid. Just his own trail. And Bowie was somewhere south with the best handler in the district. I switched on my radio. "Ruiz." Her reply came immediately. "Go. I need you and Bowie." A pause. Then, "What are we tracking?" I watched Warren Pike run deeper into open sand. A man who finally had to leave his own route. Dana and Bowie reached us 9 minutes later. By then, the sun had dropped behind the cliffs. There was still enough light to see Pike's trail, barely. Dana came over the ridge at a jog, with Bowie pulling hard enough that she had to lean backward against the lead. She saw Owen first, then Caleb. She stopped. Her eyes stayed on Caleb for several seconds. "You're Voss." Caleb gave a tired nod. "Apparently." Dana looked at me. "Eric's with Kelly. Ambulance is coming in from the south." "Good." "Paul?" "Alive. Last I saw." "Also good, I guess." I pointed east. Pike. Dana crouched beside the footprints. Bowie was already working them. He's moving fast. He knows the dunes. Better than Bowie? No, she loosened the lead. Bowie surged east. Caleb tried to follow. I stopped him. You stay with Owen. I know Pike's routes. He doesn't have a route anymore. Caleb looked toward the dunes. For 8 years, Warren Pike had apparently controlled where Caleb went, what he searched, what he believed his choices meant. Now there were no markers ahead of us. That was the point. Dana and I followed Bowie. We didn't talk much. There wasn't anything left to discuss. Pike had maybe a 15-minute lead, but he was running. Running through dunes is expensive. Every ridge takes more than it gives back. Bowie wasn't thinking about ridges. He was thinking about scent. That difference closed the distance. After 20 minutes, Dana held up a hand. We stopped. Bowie was staring into a low depression between dunes. His tail had gone rigid. I could hear breathing. Not ours, Dana called out. Warren Pike. Nothing. We know you're there. Silence. Then Pike's voice came from the darkness. You brought the dog. Dana glanced at me. Wasn't that obvious? Pike laughed once. He sounded exhausted now, human. No radio distortion, no hidden speakers, no calm voice filling a tunnel. Just one tired man somewhere below us. I said, come out. You first. No. Still learning. No, Warren. I'm done learning from you. A shape moved at the bottom of the depression. Pike stood. His shirt was dark with sweat. One sleeve was torn. He had lost his hat somewhere. No handgun, no dart projector, nothing visible in his hands. Dana shortened Bowie's lead. Pike looked at the dog, then at me. You think this changes anything? It changes tonight. You'll go back to the same procedures tomorrow. Probably. He seemed surprised. All this, and that's your conclusion? My conclusion is that procedure wasn't the problem. I looked back toward the dark basin behind us. You were. His expression flattened. Systems fail. Of course they do. Commanders lie. Sometimes. Search plans miss people. Yes. Then why trust them? I didn't say trust them. That was something I finally understood. For years, I had treated procedure like certainty. Pike treated breaking procedure like freedom. Both ideas were wrong. A search plan was a tool. A radio was a tool. A grid was a tool. Even instinct was a tool. The mistake was letting any of them make the decision for you. I said, you check the system. You check yourself. You listen when something doesn't fit. Pike glanced at Bowie. And when none of it fits? You ask for help, he smiled. That's simple. No? Then what? You stop pretending difficult choices make you special. That reached him. His face changed. Not much, enough. Behind us, faint lights appeared against the southern horizon. Park vehicles, county units. More people than Pike could control. He looked at them too. Then he looked north. I knew the calculation. One more run. One more route. One more attempt to find the space nobody had closed. Dana said, don't. Pike looked at her. You think the dog can stop me? No. She nodded toward Bowie. I think he can find you again. Pike's shoulders dropped. Not surrender yet. Recognition. He finally understood the difference. The dunes weren't a maze if someone didn't care which path he chose. He could change direction, double back, hide. Wait. Bowie didn't need a search grid to understand any of that. Pike slowly raised his hands. 20 minutes later, county deputies walked him out of the dunes. Nobody applauded. Nobody said anything clever. He was handcuffed, searched, placed in the rear of a vehicle, and driven south. That was all. It felt smaller than I expected. Most endings do. The rest took months. Eric Nolan recovered. His ankle was fractured, but not badly enough to keep him from hiking again. Owen Price had been missing for just over 3 years. His family had believed he was dead. Caleb Voss had been gone 8. His return created more questions than answers. He admitted helping Pike map search behavior, monitor radio traffic, move equipment, and build false sectors. He also gave investigators enough information to locate storage sites, cloned vehicles, and records from operations in several states. Whether every person connected to Pike was found, I don't know. Some things never reached me. Paul Avery was placed on administrative leave during the investigation. I was angry at him for a long time. Part of me still is. He had known enough to warn us. He chose secrecy because he believed information itself would contaminate future searches. Maybe he was right about the risk. He was wrong about who should carry it. Dana kept Bowie, obviously. She also told anyone who would listen that her dog solved the case and the rest of us mostly got in his way. I have never corrected her. As for me, I stayed. People assume experiences like that make you quit. Sometimes they do. But I still believed in the work. I just believed in it differently. 6 months later, I led another search in the Western District. Different basin. Different missing hiker. At the briefing, a young seasonal ranger asked why I made every team verbally confirm its own flagging before moving sectors. I told him because markers can be wrong. He laughed. I didn't. We found the missing hiker before midnight, dehydrated, scared, alive. On the walk back, we crossed one of our orange markers. 2 wraps, half hitch, long tail. Our sector number written in grease pencil. I stopped beside it. The seasonal ranger noticed. Something wrong? For a second, I was back in that basin. Caleb's radio under the sand. My name underground. Selected. Warren Pike deciding what every choice was supposed to mean. Then the wind moved the tape. Just tape. Nothing more. I checked the knot, checked the writing, checked my map. Everything matched. No, I said. Nothing's wrong. And this time, I kept walking because I had verified the route. Not because the marker told me to,